This research that came about started several years ago when we looked to see how we could become more sustainable. We realized climate change was becoming a major issue. Dr. Hugh Seeley pointed out that it is the poor that will most suffer, and we found that there was a need to educate them on the possibilities for climate change adaptation. Spring Garden was gifted to us on the 16th of September by Mr. Peter Andelt here at Nanganfur, 10 acres on each, to produce a research centre for climate smart living. We teach people how to see the goods and services from the ecosystems, how to design with nature instead of against nature. We teach things like how to make fish fertilizer, seaweed emulsion, liquid chicken manures, liquid manures, which help to give a better response to the plant's needs. You'd first have to look at some of the elements that affect your plot. Where does the sun come up? Where does it set? Where does the wind come from? How protected am I? You would look to see whereabouts you can put your house. You want it somewhere between the top of the hill and the bottom where the water is, where you'd be able to receive water by gravity feed, but not be too close to the bottom of the water where you can be flooded. We had to look at our location and what was in the near and what we were surrounded by. Spring Garden doesn't get its name by accident. There are lots of springs and a lot of water running across the land. We are located just under Granatang and just on the near to St. Margaret's Falls or Seven Sisters Falls. The water that we collect is from off of Seven Sisters. So we are abundant with water crossing the land. So we look at the elements of water and the way the hills run. This comes into earthworks. Earthworks is the construction of the land, how we shape the land for further use, for the running of the water, for the pasturing of animals, roadways, how they should be ways of also collecting water off of them, and they should not disrupt the flow of water. The objective of part of the construction of this land is ensuring that water does not cause land degradation, to make sure that there are water courses that will sometimes slow down the course of water during torrential rains, or that there are rocks that help to slow down that water course inside of the drainage. All of these things we've had to take into consideration. The storing of water in swales across the land, so to allow the slow seepage of water into the land instead of a quick runoff. So these are all considerations we gave to the water side of things. So we use a lot of waste. Even in containing things, we use a lot of waste. We use blue barrels from Fortune Foods, which are just $25 a blue barrel. And we would make our first strainer with that, where we use bagasse, gravel, large stones, and charcoal to purify whatever toxins inside of that water that we might use in detergents or in cleaners. That water that comes through, that grey water that then comes through, goes straight into another bucket or barrel that is filled with a feed bag that we would have gotten from the animals, feed, to put in things like seaweed, where we get from Lavera or from Telescope. We get bagasse from River Antoine, where they're now cutting cane. We put that in as well. We put in fish guts as well. We put in things like chicken manure. We put in things like cow manure and pig manure. We tie that in the bag, and then we allow the wastewater to run on it, creating a tea of sorts. This tea then goes through our ponics system. which is 4-inch pipe and half a barrels, as well as buckets, or bucket culture as we call it, filled with gravel as the medium, as the growing medium. This gets a full onslaught of nutrients directly to the plants, because these are now in liquid form, which the roots are now able to absorb and take in. Things like lettuce, cabbage, cauliflower, kale, romaine lettuce, all love rich nutrient soil, so they thrive best in this. Coming a little closer down, we will have things like the tomatoes and salad peppers, which too love these nutrients, the full onslaught of nutrients, which allows them to thrive even faster than if we had planted them in the ground. We're looking at the pigs at this point in time. The pigs are fed greatly by the waste food that comes from Creole Shack and Melting Pot, two of Amdel's and Associates restaurants. So we recognized old practices like growing tayo and giving them the old fig and blogger. Things like bacano, they love bacano leaves. They love balize. We are finding more and more other plants that they're like. A real fattener for pigs is moringa. And moringa is a miracle plant for every animal on the farm, including the human being. Where chickens are concerned, we feed them the old bread. We are now introducing roosters, so what we will do is pull back the hormone feed that they have and just give them a lot of breads and waste material, but they do more free ranging and foraging for food and eat all of the leaves in the garden. So our free range chickens are layers, and we have over 400 of them at this point in time. We also have 4 cows. The cows are on pole. Polling the cows allows us to now procure manure for planting, and putting them on a pole where we feed them, where they're tied to a pole, allows us to put that manure in one place where we can find it. Other than that, the cow roams and his dung is carried through the land. We also have turkeys who we will use in our chicken tractor trailer, because they're very good at gobbling up everything in sight, but they're also great for distributing manure. The sheep and goat, while pastured out, sheep especially, are very good at grazing underneath our nutmeg, and that gives us a way of not having to use manpower to cut and clear. The goats help us with the vine and help pull down vine where we have overgrowth. We have rabbits. But they too are part of our manure system, where we are procuring manure for doing our nursery seedlings. Time and effort equals money. We put in the time and the effort into the design in the beginning to allow a low maintenance situation on the long term. So it pays off for itself, because whereas weeding and cultivating plants in the ground tend to require quite a bit of labor, these are effortless once you set it up the first time. They are sort of self-sustaining systems that allow for growth at a rate that is not like the growth when you have the plants into the ground, because now the plant is getting these nutrients directly. Okay. Well, we've seen the plants in their beds multiply and fruit beyond our wildest imaginations. Because the beds were mulched, we didn't need to pay attention to weeding. We didn't need to pay attention to much of the disease possibilities, because the companion planting that we used wasn't a prevalence of one plant. So it totally confused the pests. So we have a more efficient way of planting and an abundance of food. The flowering and the fruiting of these plants, especially when you use seaweed, was phenomenal. First of all, we'll have a reporting website where you can find some of this information online. You can find it on GERRI's website. But you can always come to the farm. On weekends, we're opened up for you to explore and to also to investigate. We will invite you to even do a few experimentations with us so that you might have a hands-on experience of doing some of these things yourself and the ability to try it yourself after.